Now, when I was a young boy growing up, I remember reading about Chicken Little. You remember Chicken
Yeah,
Little?
yeah.
Chicken
Sky is
Little,
falling.
sky is falling, and we're not talking about real estate. We're not talking about stocks, although we could be.
Good. Yeah.
But in the watch world, it's funny because over the last couple of years, watches are the greatest investment ever. Stock up on every watch you can get, pay whatever you can. It's only going to go up. It's
Yeah.
never going to go down. This is the way it is now. This is the new reality. It's not like they used
Different.
to be.
It's different this time.
It's gonna be different. Well, Chicken Little was actually right, and for any of us that were foreseeing this, we could have told you. I told you so because this was the most obvious thing on the
Yeah.
planet. Even you take something like Rolex, and the way people say, "Wow, I got to line up for a Rolex," and I go to the Rolex boutique, and there's like one watch in there, and there's a 30-year waiting list. Really, until recent times, you could have gone into the store, you could have bought almost any Rolex you
Yeah.
wanted, no tax, 10 to 15% off. Have a nice day. That's
Yeah.
how it was pretty much forever.
Except for
Bench,
Daytona. Yeah.
definitely Daytona, fair enough. But it still was attainable, not to the
Yeah.
level, obviously, now how it's impossible, but you could have had one. You could have bought a Smurf as long as you wanted. You
Oh
could have
yeah.
bought Kermits. You could have bought Hulks any day you wanted, as many as you want, no problem. Now, the way I figured it, there's only so much amount of money that sits in the world. You can only spend it on so many watches because we have to buy Lambos and we have to buy mansions and everything else. But at some point, there's something called inflation and interest rates and debt, and reality comes crashing at some point. Well, it looks like the sky has fallen. If we go onto Chrono 24 and plug in our watch collections, apparently they are devaluing by the day. So tell me now, RJ, this is why we had to bring you on.
Yeah.
This is the main topic today. What the heck is going on? Has the sky fallen? What is going on with watch prices, my friend?
Well, I think it's just a correction and reality. It'll be interesting to see though, because right now the problem is that there's so many groups so heavily vested in maintaining that idea that they're wise investments and that they're going to maintain value. And so you see these great dealers who have so much stock, but also have a lot of renown and probably comfortable cushion that they can hold the stock and not waver. What's going to be interesting is to see when the first domino falls, and you're already starting to see some slight drops. But a lot of these fly by night flippers who were on wait lists, just saying I'll take whatever you get, they're going to not be able to flip as easily because these guys would say, okay, date chest, I'll take a date chest. Yacht master, whatever you got, I want it. And then as soon as they got it, they'd go over to Watch Trader and sell it for 500 bucks, 1,000 bucks, whatever more than what they paid. And for some people, like 30 minutes work, 500 bucks, that's worth that effort. So they would line up everywhere. They would put their names everywhere. Those guys not being able to turn that quick profit, they're going to start to say no when they get the call. And then people right now just mindset and psychology and sentiment is down. So when the news is talking about recession and they're saying the markets had the worst 6 months since the Great Depression, the real estate market is stagnant, all these things, this is all bad news. So no one really wants to celebrate. No one's in a mood to buy. So no one really feels that great. They've seen their own portfolios drop. They don't feel like going out and celebrating with a watch. So there's that consumer mindset, consumer confidence that's down. And then some of the collectors are just waiting to see, knowing that they could probably catch a better deal later. So you're going to start to see more of the pieces available at retail, and there's going to be less demand because the people who never cared about watches, who just could make a quick flip, they're not going to see that quick cash anymore. They're going to say no. And then the ones who cared about being the only guy with a Pepsi, now that the Pepsis are more readily available, he's not going to want his Pepsi anymore. So you're going to see those guys say, I don't care about the Pepsi anymore. Everyone has one. And that used to be what we all rejected about Rolex, was the fact everybody's got a Rolex. The guy at the my mechanic has a Submariner. I want something that's going to separate me from the crowd. And then the idea that you could score a Rolex became what was social currency. So when that social currency and that social value of having that Rolex is no longer there, you're going to see both parts of the buyer, both parts of that market start to decline. And then when you got these guys who have to start to sell because they're sitting on too much inventory, and like you said, interest rates, credit card bills are coming, they've got to get out. You're going to see them just start to drop prices. And as soon as you see the price drop, you can't go back. So these big grade dealers, DSW, these guys who are holding their prices really high still, as soon as the smaller players in the game start to unload Daytona at 25, he's not going to be able to ask 35 for his Daytona anymore. It's like when Ben Johnson first ran the 100 meters in 9.7, no one wanted to see a slower time. They didn't care that he was on steroids. They just that time was set, and that's all anyone wanted to see. And then years later, Usain Bolt runs at 9.4, but he's clean. But no one cares. It's all about that idea. Once that number is ingrained, there's no going back. So I think the things are just getting started.
Oh,
And I think
absolutely.
it's going to be a great time for people who actually love watches, because there's going to be a lot of guys sitting on stock needing to unload. There's going to be some satisfaction in telling the authorized dealer who wouldn't even return your calls anymore. When he calls you up, you'll be able to say, no, I found it elsewhere for a better price. And I think it'll be interesting the next little while.
The ones it's like you're saying, the shoe is starting to drop and it's little by little. So the ones I notice are the obvious suspects. The two-tone sub,
Ooh,
the two-tone Daytona, Batman, Batgirl.
you
Now,
mentioned the Smurf. You mentioned the
yep,
Smurf was the first to start to sell under retail.
yep,
And briefly, that was about, and that was never a popular watch. That was never a watch that anyone would pay retail for. And then they discontinued it,
yep.
and hype was high, and that was selling high. That's the first one now that they can't move. And then the ones like I said, like Zenith and GP Loretto, those had no business selling above list. Vacheron, you're going to see crash hard because those were just riding coattails.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny with the Vacherons because that's another one that's always considered an elite watch. And you go to the boutique, they'll close it for you when you're the one in there. I get it. But
Mhm.
that's a watch always, as soon as you walked out of the store, it depreciated the second it went off the lot. The
Yeah.
longer it was sitting on your wrist, the more it depreciated up to a certain level. And you could have picked up on a nice deal if you're okay with Vacheron. Then all of a sudden,
Mhm.
everybody woke up, I need a steel Vacheron. And I'm saying to myself, I could have had this watch at 15. Now it's 45.
Yeah.
Don't think it's gonna be staying at 45. No, that's the new reality now. But like you said, it's funny, I am around a lot of real estate investors, and the one thing they always say in recessionary times or in uncertain times, stock market, the ones with liquid money that are ready to buy when nobody
Yeah.
else wants to
Yeah.
buy, they're the ones that are laughing.
Yeah.
And the other one that you didn't mention, which I was surprised, but I'm sure you've thought of it at different points, was the form of currency. It wasn't interesting how Bitcoin and all those other currencies, quote
Yeah.
unquote currencies, how they went hand in hand with watch collecting, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden those currencies drop, the watches drop. I don't know if that's a coincidence.
Oh yeah. No, not all. And that was a big part of it too, because there was a lot of fast money and overnight millionaires. And for them, the best way to display that was with a watch. And it had to be something like a Rolex because that had the renown. And that's why Rolex did so well, is because they invested for so long in making sure that everyone thought that Rolex was synonymous with success and milestone and achievement. And I don't think Rolex has any interest in restricting supply to keep this hype going, because that's not the Rolex business model. Rolex does not want to be that exclusionary watch. They want to be that milestone celebration watch, grandpa's wedding watch that now is your watch. They want to be that retirement watch, that 50-year-old, that anniversary watch. That's what they want to be. That's why they make a million watches a year and have invested heavily in people thinking that the only way to commemorate a significant achievement is with a Rolex. So they want those watches on the wrists of people like that, because that creates generational customers. You see your father, your grandfather, you see that watch, and then the watch you buy today looks a heck of a lot like that watch that he bought 20 years ago. That's part of their long-term strategy. They don't care about being a Veblen item or helping you flex on social media. They're not going to restrict their million watches a year just so that you can sell at a premium. I'm sure they're happy about it, but people have always felt that Rolex retained value better than any other watch. Before, when it was just understood that you would lose money on a watch, you would think, well, at least you'll lose less on a Rolex. So Rolex doesn't want to be an investment. Rolex's profit is maxed out as soon as it leaves Switzerland. So it doesn't matter what the end user pays for it. Rolex doesn't make any more for that. So they're not going to restrict supply. All these people talking, oh, they're going to restrict supply. They're going to discontinue the Batman. They're going to do all these things to try to keep the gray market prices high. That's all desperate people trying to retain value before they can dump their own stock.
When we're gonna be another year or 2, depending on where it's gonna be at, we'll be able to go to car dealerships, there'll be cars again, there probably won't
Mhm.
be sitting there'll be more just-in-time inventory, they've gotten smart about that, but
Mhm.
there will be more inventory because the chip shortage will be over. In watches, only so many people can buy the same watches over and over, eventually they
Yeah.
will be in the showcase again. It was just reality coming, but when people are in that hype, they just feel it, they just wanna have it right that moment. A sneaker collector, sorry,
Yeah.
reached out to me today actually, and he said to me, "I missed the boat on selling the collection because even in sneaker now, it dried up in sneaker
Yeah.
land. That people are not buying them readily, paying 3, 4 times over the retail anymore. So on a lot of models,
Yeah.
so again, it's you're buying a $215, $250 pair of sneakers. There's always and then when they overproduce them, and there's a lot of each of those sneakers, people don't think there are, but there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
And when there isn't people asking for them readily at double, people are not lining up as much anymore. And eventually you'll be able to buy them for retail at the store again. Maybe they'll even make it back to the outlet at some
Yeah.
point. And I could see a day when we're gonna be able to go to the Rolex shop and get tax off 10% again, and it will be back.
Without question, they keep making more Pepsis. They keep making more Sky Dwellers. They keep making more Batmen and Batgirl. So those aren't going anywhere. But that's how you can tell the true watch collector and lover, because for me, the drop in all the prices is a good thing. Not only to buy more, but now I feel more comfortable wearing what I've got. You know, when the Hulk was selling at 35, as much as you wouldn't want it to, it changes your psychology and your mindset. I bought a $6,500 watch, and I used to wear it to the gym some days. I would never wear a $35,000 watch doing some of these casual things. So it changed the way you felt about it. So now that they're down, I'm more liberated in being able to wear. And it's like you said, we knew that this crash was coming. So at the peak, toyed with the idea, well, I could sell it at this and then I'll buy back in when it
Mhm,
crashes,
mhm.
but then it wouldn't be yours. It's a different watch. It's just not the same. So that emotional attachment is what separates the collector from the investor. So I'm happy to see it because now I can enjoy wearing them more. Whereas before, it like some of the APs, like the 15500, I don't feel comfortable wearing $120,000 watch. I bought it for 18. It's ridiculous. So now it's more liberating, and so I can wear them again and not feel strange about it. I wouldn't wear them in London or or in Europe or in certain areas in Toronto, but at least I can wear them again.
But it's kind of funny, it's kind of perverse if you think about it. As a watch collector, here I have my watch. I paid 15,000 for it. It's gone up to 35, $40,000. Wow. I don't really want to wear it, as far as I don't feel comfortable anymore. And now it's gone back down. It's about 24,000, let's say. So take a
Yeah,
typical, let's say Batman, Batgirl. You could
yeah,
probably pick one up right now at about 24 and change, give or take. At one point it was 30, 35. It's gone down, and you're planning to keep it regardless, so the value is actually meaningless at this point. It's kind of fun to
yeah.
watch it, but the more it's gone down, you're actually like, okay, so now people have calmed down about it. I actually feel good about it. Whereas most people under investments would be crying about it, and that's where I think it's a very key point. Are you a watch collector because you're collecting it, or are you a watch investor? And I think in those kind of goods, whether it's watch investing, car investing, it's a scary proposition. Like you
Mm,
really based on markets with what's generally considered depreciating assets for the most
yeah.
part. So I really caution people on that. And I'm sure there are people that took out lines of credit, uh, even secured against their own homes to pick up one or two watches and said, you know
Mhm.
what, I'm going to hold on to this and I'm going to double my money or triple my money. And they could have, and they said, no, 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 I'm going to hold on to it for longer. And now they're like, uh-oh. And
Only
one thing
going
I've
up.
noticed, stuff ain't moving anymore like it used to, even at better prices.
Yeah,
The prices have gone down, but they've been sitting on those sites. They ain't moving.
yeah.